Your breathing had slowed down to a crawl. Your eyes closed, lying flat. The only indicator of the passing days were the redness moving past your eyelids and the warmth it gave you. You were lying flat, as our toys called it, to preserve energy. Something akin to hibernation. Hide somewhere where the carnivore toys couldn't find you easily, and just lie down into nothing. Spending months, maybe even years like this, fading in and out of consciousness. As it turns out, sleep was not just the poor man's dinner, but after being turned into a toy, it had become the poor doll's survival. By the time you had considered becoming a predator, like so many others, you had already become too weak, and so your fate was sealed. According to the others, lying flat would either lead to your peaceful eternal slumber, or somehow getting saved. The hope of either of these becoming true kept you going. Perhaps not alive, not really, just vaguely present enough to shackle you to this place. Over time, you even learned how to shut off your ears, and the feelings in your plastic skin shell slowly numbing. You became a mind inside of a black void. Only the occasional cockroach or rat climbing over your body giving you sensations. You survived the hour of joy without hurting anyone. You haven't succumbed to starvation. So this was the best outcome for you. Well, at least until you were found. You awoke with a fright, your little heart pounding, staring forward, unmoving for a few minutes, your eyes shaking in their sockets. You inhaled and exhaled through your mouth. Your sudden jolt awoke your strange bedfellow Catnap. The giant, bigger body's toy awakening from his slumber, standing up to his full height at the end of your bed, which he was too big for. So he chose to sleep on the floor. Huh. His ever-smiling face turned to face you. He didn't say anything, just stared for a few moments while you looked away in embarrassment, turning to your still functioning digital clock, indicating that it was 3:30 in the morning, still far before bedtime was over. It will explain why the cat stared at you so angrily.
Nightmare?
He asked slowly, his speaker crackling mockingly. Your lips quivered as you thought. The last time you had told Catnap that you had dreams of lying flat, he got unreasonably upset. Honestly, his fit had been surprisingly cute. He felt as if you wishing to lie flat again was a sign that he didn't treat you well enough, and so you refrained from telling him whenever you did.
What was it about?
Damn it. Desperately you thought. You're just woken up in the middle of the night. Damn it. Bugs!
Bugs?
He tilted his head curiously. Yeah, lots of them. Crawling everywhere. You tilted your head. Everywhere, you repeated. Since Catnap had become a bigger body before his puberty, as well as the hour of joy happening before it, he never had proper guidance for these feelings. As such, his mind automatically did half the work, in a rather childish way. He pulled his head away in embarrassment, one paw placed on his left ear.
Oh dear.
After regaining his composure 3 seconds later, he leaned forward, his large face hovering above yours.
Dreaming about bugs and insects suggests you have worries about something crawling through your unconscious mind. As such, these dreams are symbolic of your fears and anxieties. If you are dreaming about insects in large numbers, it can be a symbol of negative thoughts, guilt, or anxiety that are haunting you.
You blinked. Yeah, I know. Thanks, Catnap. I'll be sure to remember that. Obviously, you weren't human anymore, legally speaking, and according to the definition of the other toys. You were a Patricia Partridge toy, a very popular 80s toy for teen girls, based on the Three Mysteries book series. A collection of teen novels about a male and a female detective who discover their feelings for each other during their hunt for a serial museum burglar. You obviously being the female counterpart. The Three Mysteries-related toys were originally meant to be tour guides of the factory for non-orphans. But, well, safe to say, thanks to the hour of joy you never once did your intended job. You had light flared once the food had begun to run out, and the first discussions of cannibalism were going around. And eventually, over what felt like years, and probably even were years, you had been noticed. You must have twitched, or your body radiated just enough heat to be noticed, but nevertheless, you had been discovered by the prototype. But, due to you not having any interesting parts that would improve the grotesque monstrosity that he was, he had taken you and delivered you to Playcare. As you still played dead, you were intended to be food for the cat and his little angels inside of the playhouse, but rather than being devoured, Catnap had chosen to make you a nanny for him and the little ones. And to Catnap's surprise, his master, the prototype, was okay with it. Though the comment of, as long as you feed it, it could have kept to itself. Catnap had brought you into Home Sweet Home, where you were put on a bed, and eventually you had stopped lying flat, due to hunger. You had been burning calories again due to your fear of whatever was happening to your body, and so you slowly regained your motor functions, and becoming Catnap's property. Dressed in a tattered, bloody uniform of the orphanage workers, looking like a purple-colored nurse scrubs, its shirt being so long it reached your knees and was more like a dress if anything, you spent your days cleaning and giving the various inhabitants of Playcare company. There were certain duties you had to do. Clean, ensure the pressure of the red gas was at manageable levels, feed the little ones with whatever Catnap brought you, and most importantly, keep the last surviving Miss Delight Bigger Bodies toy locked up in the school at all costs. You yourself not seen her, but what Catnap told you of her was enough for you to double-check every day that the entrance was thoroughly locked to the school. The playhouse was filled with small, smiling critters, about the size of the actual toy. You yourself didn't know why they were here, and frankly, who they were, and you didn't care. They didn't eat you, and Catnap was good to you. Almost too good. It made you flustered, especially during quiet moments, when you were lying against him while he was curled up. He had a strange obsession with keeping you clean, using his long felt tongue to wash you. Of course he couldn't taste with it, his rear mouth being located somewhere below the speaker, but he wasn't the only one being strangely obsessed with you. As during your first solo exploration of the playhouse, you discovered the darkest secret of Playcare. The emergency food. DogDay. The counterpart to Catnap. A dog Bigger Body's toy in terrible shape. Unlike Catnap, the dog was still roughly human-sized, mostly thanks to him being severed in half. You had thusly decided to reduce your own rations of whatever Catnap was feeding you and to add it to the meals for the little monsters, so they would stop feeding on the dog. Regardless of that, however, there was still nothing for him left, unless it were specific situations. Awakening as per usual at around 10 a.m., you and Catnap made your rounds. Him doing whatever he did, not like he talked much, while you continued cleaning Home Sweet Home. When you had arrived, it was in terrible disrepair, and not like you had many resources to fix things, such as broken ceilings, but at least you could get rid of the debris, dust and dirt, and throw out any broken furniture. It was your diligent work that kept this place from becoming any worse, though you doing this mostly alone made this more of a time-wasting activity rather than actually an attempt at getting more breathing room. For that, the place was simply too destroyed and too big. You were pushing out a dirty sofa with a rotten smell and suspicious red stains when Catnap showed up behind you, watching you from above. His eyes focused on you as he watched you grunt and shove and push. Quickly he made his way downstairs, stopping behind you, thinking, before his heavy claw slapped on your shoulder.
Angel, what are you doing?
For a moment your heart raced. The fact he could easily tear you apart was making you anxious. I'm cleaning, he said with a numb tone. I'm cleaning, he said with a numb tone. The cat huffed through his nose, a puff of red smoke emitting, before removing his paw from your shoulder and placing it on the sofa. Together, or more, him doing most of the pushing, you brought the thing into a dark corner of play care, where you discarded all the other broken furniture. But just as you were about to thank him and leave, he grabbed you by the back of your shirt, lifting you into the air. What are you doing? You were afraid. But only for a moment, as all the cat did was set you down on a ruined bed. With a pounding heart, you looked up at Catnap, who proceeded to climb on top of you. What are you doing? You asked, afraid, or more excited. You had an idea where this was leading to, but you wanted him to say it. His body lowered on top of yours, burying you beneath his tall, skinny, plush body. You exhaled with wild excitement as he did so.
We haven't done this in a while.
His head turned to Sweet Home.
It would be a shame to break another perfectly functioning bed.
Looking back at you, he tilted, expectantly. Your hands scratched over the naked mattress in anticipation as you inhaled through your mouth. So that's how it is. You smiled, gently placing a hand on his shoulder, causing his plush to vibrate excitedly, as well as his tail to twitch like a caterpillar on the search for delicious leaves. Feeling his muscles move, it was strangely endearing. He was warm and soft. His massive head came closer. After a moment of search, you found the lipless, blackened, real mouth of Catnap, and cautiously you leaned forward, pressing your rubbery, siliconed lips against Catnap's teeth. It was a strange kiss. A kiss on a mouth within a mouth, and yet wholesome. Well, if it wasn't for the aphrodizing smell of pheromones coming from Catnap, The lewd smell made it impossible to have pure thoughts, especially when your tongues touched, allowing him passage into your mouth. Well, the critters were scent-based creatures. As such, this was to be expected. Excited, you exhaled through your nose, his mouth twitching at the sensation. Meanwhile, your hands moved up his neck and the back of his head, reaching for his tattered ears, rubbing your thumb over their inside, making him gasp excitedly. His speaker vibrated, and so, with a devious smile, you gently pushed your other hand forward, using your fingertips to gently brush over the sensitive felt of the speaker. Catnap breathed excitedly, and it wasn't long before his excitement reached the right level. He placed a paw next to your head, leaning himself up to the side, his eyes unblinkingly staring at you as you began undressing, pulling the scraps over your head and unraveling the string knot of your pants. He loved seeing you unclothed, a sinful sight only made sweeter by it normally being hidden under clothing. He loved you. You were the only wonderful thing that happened to him in all these years. He wanted your body so desperately right now.
Oh, my beloved angel,
he whispered as he put his body in the right position.
Let's enjoy the rest of the day, becoming one.
You awoke hours later, tired. Catnap was lying on the floor next to you, the bed now even more broken than before. His eyes open, he stared at you.
You sleep deeply when you don't have nightmares, my angel.
You smiled, wincing. Your back hurt, causing him to chuckle proudly, knowing he just rearranged your organs. And you looked away, blushing. What time is it? You muttered, rubbing your eyes.
8.
Was all he said.
Why?
You gulped quietly. He didn't notice. I'm starving. He pulled his head back for a moment, ears twitching.
I understand, angel. After that, I shall return soon. Don't be afraid.
The cat stood up, making his way to the tram. You looked after him as you picked up your clothes. He squeezed himself into the cart before activating it. You watched him leave. And once he was gone, you made your way into a sweet home. You had a side mission, as you would call it. Wandering into the kitchen, on the top shelf behind a bunch of sand-filled dummy cans, you had hidden cave mushrooms, cooked in a glass with salt water. These cave mushrooms were so-called grey dove oysters. They tasted somewhat like store-bought ones, and were surprisingly common, though only accessible in the caves around Playcare. The toys usually avoided eating these, as they didn't know these were actually edible, which was good. It prevented overfeeding, and the mushrooms being gone entirely. You yourself tried to avoid eating them as often as possible, and you kept this fact hidden, even from Catnap. But then your eyes fell upon the kitchen's mirror. It was shattered, only pieces remained. You sighed, putting a hand on your cheek. Your plastic skin was a quite dull-looking caramel brown. The synthetic shell was torn around your left jaw, revealing your teeth, but still far enough away to keep your lips intact. Your hair was made out of blonde plastic that, due to it being, well, plastic, could not be taken care of in a conventional manner. Any damage was permanent, and it wouldn't regrow. And so it looked withered, frizzy, dull, and in a few places you had large chunks missing. Your eyes. You realize were somewhere beneath glass orbs that, while you could look through, made it seem like your eye color was a bright blue. You absent-mindedly brushed over your exposed teeth. There was more damage on your body, you have heard. Apparently on your back were multiple dents and cuts, but you never saw them for obvious reasons. You put the glass in your pocket and sighed. There was a certain dog who needed this, desperately. You entered the playhouse with a pounding heart. The smiling critters that resided here were used to you by now, of course. They knew your importance to Catnap, and so wouldn't attack you. But if they saw you feed the heretic, DogDay, whose crime was the refusal to help the prototype, you'd be back on the menu. You emphasized with the dog. Technically, you were a heretic too. You just hid it better. And well, since you moved here, you had been eating whatever the cat gave you, meaning any meat was most likely either rats or from a much different source. You shook your head, not wanting to think about it. The small critters, as per usual, were sleeping. They only awoke at the sight or smell of an intruder, or when there was food, which was usually kind of the same. In a way, they were lying flat, just like you, just more ferocious. A few lazy white eyes stared at you as you walked through the halls undisturbed. The air smelled foul, moist, and had a strong, rotten smell to it. But honestly, every place in this hell somewhat reeked of mold. Sliding through a red, sticky tube, you stumbled into the dark hallway leading to the chained-up DogDay. Slowly you walked forward. The silence here was only interrupted by the dog's labored breathing. You could hear it echoing down the hall. The entire playhouse was barely lit by emergency lights. But of course, DogDay had one of the lamps shine directly at him for maximum discomfort. You stepped forward, his empty eyes staring at you, the light within them having long since gone. The belt around his hip was tight, as red liquid slowly dripped from it.
Angel, you have returned,
he spoke. Stepping next to him, you began to wordlessly undo his shackles. DogDay looked at you, a little befuddled, as you quietly worked. A very, very faint and kinda sad vanilla smell coming from his mouth. It was the only tangible reaction coming from him. DogDay couldn't help but gasp, however, when you switched arms, and the just freed ones just slapped on the ground.
Angel, why are you doing this to me?
Finally, he was undone, and he lied there, in the dirt, like a pile of potatoes. You, sitting next to him. He was simply too weak to move, and so, from your pockets, you removed the mushroom jar, placing it in front of his face. He was quiet until you opened it. The stench from the mushrooms was strong, but his nose had long stopped picking up senses. Taking out mushroom by mushroom, you fed him into his functioning mouth beneath the speaker. They tasted good-ish. They were cold and just tasted like rubbery salt. A little gross, of course, but most things here tasted absolutely vile. Each time DogDay swallowed, however, he felt his body tense up with energy again. And once the jar was empty, he put the glass away, wiping off the mushroom gunk on your pants. You then remained there, staring at you. He eventually raised his head a little.
Angel, why? Why prolong my suffering by feeding me?
You looked at him, placing a hand on his head, petting the dog. His felt was dirty, sticky and disgusting, making you wish you had soap. I mean, you hate it? Plus, I feel sorry for you.
Sorry for me? Angel, I expect a lot of things, but never something as this.
Placing both hands on DogDay's ears, scratching them, you leaned forward. All he could see was you now. I mean it, Matt. I feel sorry for anyone still inside the factory. Me included, of course. Your face was turned into a visage of pure pain and anxiety. I was honestly hoping the police would have showed up by now. Saved us, all of us, but it seems we're eternally stuck here. We have to hold on to whatever shred of empathy is left. You refused to say the word humanity. Yes, he was a dog toy. And you're a parody of a human. Your heart sunk as you sighed, and gently embraced his large, grinning doggy head.
I can read you like a book, Angel.
He muffled into your chest.
You're just as hopeless as the rest of us. But you want our final moments to be as comfortable as possible. Cut that empathy crap. You're expecting me to get eaten. You know I will get eaten. But whatever pain I'll experience that day should not be made worse by hunger.
I suppose it's a little obvious, huh? You remained like this for a while. A quiet, tender moment. Until his hands embraced you by the hip. His fingers curled, instinctively digging into you. It took you a few minutes of silence when you suddenly opened one eye. You're like Catnap, aren't you? He pulled his head away.
What do you mean?
With one hand, you reached for your scrub's buttons. Well, turning into a toy just before puberty. Now you're an adult who doesn't know anything. DogDay's head moved away, but his eyes were glued on you as you slowly opened up your shirt. Sure, these are not as squishy as the real thing, but I've been told they feel great. You smiled seductively, revealing your chest to him. DogDay gasped. Grabbing his wrist, he placed one of his hands on yourself. His fingers grasping, twitching excitedly.
Angel, what are you doing?
This time it wasn't just a title for his delusions. This was a genuine nickname now. You were an angel. I am going to let you do to me whatever you want. Touch, feel, kiss, whatever you like. Okay, Mutt? DogDay inhaled sharply, crawling forward.
Yes, Angel. But only if you stop calling me Mutt.
You winked at him. Sure. Can do. I'm very grateful for that, and I would like to ask you to please share the video around on social media so more people can see it. And that's it really. But before we say goodbye, I would like to say thank you to all of my lovely channel members who so lovingly support me. We have Giovanni Moriarty, Twilight Mia, Zoe, Angel, Angry Boxman, Hella, BitBit, Melofia, Anonymous Weep, Zachary, Nicodemus D, and Valerie Wings. Thank you for being wonderful, darling stewards. And of course, let's not forget all of my other lovely darlings who support me. Thank you for your support. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.